rational person.
Look, honestly, when you call Trump a baboon, you're kind of falling into his rhetorical trap of getting in the gutter with him. And I don't think
What is this, Piers? Well, I mean, can you agree that he's a stupid man-child? Can you at least agree on that?
No, I don't think he's a stupid man-child.
What is this screaming into the abyss? I'm going to kill them all. I'm the new Hitler. He's basically saying he's the new Hitler. What is that? He's either a monster or a monster and a man-child.
I find these posts...
There is a moment in this clip where Cenk Uygur says something that cuts through everything else and lands like a brick through a window. He says the only people dumber than Donald Trump are the Democratic leadership that keeps losing to him. And Piers Morgan does not have an answer for that one. Nobody in the room does. This is Piers Morgan Uncensored, Cenk Uygur on one side, founder of the Young Turks, one of the loudest progressive voices in independent media, coming in hot from the first second and not cooling down once. KT McFarland on the other side, former US Deputy National Security Advisor, defending Trump's approach as unconventional negotiation, and Piers Morgan in the middle trying to hold the line on the baboon conversation while the entire geopolitical order unravels in the background. This is not a standard left versus right debate. This is a conversation about whether America is still making its own foreign policy decisions or whether it has subcontracted that function to another government entirely. It is about the difference between political cunning and actual wisdom. It is about who is winning the 21st century while the United States burns $1 billion a day in the Middle East. And it is about what it means for the soul of a country when its president threatens to destroy an entire civilization and the political class treats it as a negotiating tactic. If this channel is where you come to get it straight, subscribe right now and let us get into it.
And listen to what she said. She said, what if the Iranians get a nuke? First of all, preposterous. They don't have any ability to deliver that enriched uranium. She knows it. This is all about regime change. It's for Israel. We all know that. In fact, Israel has nukes, and they're a super dangerous country. Ben-Gvir on TV just yesterday was joking around about nuking Iran and how he would like to do that. So, and she says, oh my God, can you imagine if the Iranians had nukes, they might want to wipe out our entire civilization. That's what Trump just said. Trump is, like you said earlier, Piers, he's talking like a terrorist. So this is the Israelification of our policy. They're pro-genocide. We're not pro-genocide. We're the good guys. And so this is unbearable. This is, look, I reach out to all voters, including Trump voters, all the time. I'm the last person to rub it in and go, ha ha, you made a mistake. I love it when people come to the right side. I'm the guy who said Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massey, and Tucker Carlson would do the right thing on war and Iran, and I'm relieved to see that they did, and I really appreciate it. But guys, this is why I was forced to vote for 3 corporate Democrats I can't stand, because the alternative was this madman, Donald Trump. He's always been a madman. He's always been a spoiled child. His father gave him $400 million and he blew it. And then his second daddy, Jeff Zucker, gave him $400 million through The Apprentice and he blew that. So when he gets into this quagmire, he just said yesterday, oh, he didn't think that they were going to close the Strait of Hormuz. We all knew they were going to close the Strait of Hormuz. How could you not know that? So he gets frustrated. He got talked into it by Israel. So now he can't find a way out. And so he starts screaming into the abyss like a spoiled child. Give me what I want or I'll destroy you. And I'll take my ball and go home, except I'll nuke you first. This is disgusting talk. And look, I think there is a third alternative to what you just said. There's a possibility, Piers, that he's threatening to blow up the power plants and the bridges and to nuke them or do whatever he's madman talk that he's doing. And then he's instead going to put in ground troops and go, ha ha, I'm so clever. You were expecting the bombing, but I put in ground troops instead. But we didn't want ground troops. None of these choices are good. We shouldn't be in this war in the first place. There's nothing but disastrous choices for us. And of course, meanwhile, Israel is laughing and laughing because, number one, they want a mess and chaos in Iran so that it debilitates them and they can't fund Hamas and Hezbollah. And number two, they have the Leviathan pipeline now. It is a giant gas field. So if we bomb Iran's gas fields and they bomb the Gulf gas fields, the number one winner economically is Israel. So they can't wait for this kind of death and destruction. He should have, he fired Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi. He should have fired all the Israel First advisors that are surrounding him, which is literally everyone at the White House.
Okay.
Clean house, get Americans in there, not people serving a different country, and especially a genocidal country like Israel. That's why you get the kind of talk that you're seeing today.
Okay, but the only bigger...
And by the way, one more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it's whether he does it or not, the mere fact of saying that America would destroy an entire civilization and commit genocide or a Holocaust like this puts a moral stain on us. We cannot bear that moral stain. We're supposed to be the good guys. This kind of language, even if he doesn't follow through on it, is a terrible mark on America, and we shouldn't tolerate it.
Okay. I'm a bit concerned about you, Cenk. You're losing your voice. I'm not sure the American people could suffer that blow at this particular time.
Don't go on is. Trump is a baboon. I mean, he's so stupid. It's like talking to a child. I mean, if you told me, oh, you're going to be a spectator to history, you better attack Iran before we do, I'd be like, shut up and get out of the American White House. And but Trump's like, oh, okay, Daddy, am I going to be big and powerful? So I can't stand the guy, and I can't stand
I don't think calling him
a rational person.
Look, honestly, when you call Trump a baboon, you're kind of falling into his rhetorical trap of getting in the gutter with him. And I don't think
What is this, Piers? Well, I mean, can you agree that he's a stupid man-child? Can you at least agree on that?
No, I don't think he's a stupid man.
I mean, what is this screaming into the abyss? I'm going to kill them all. I'm the new Hitler. He's basically saying he's the new Hitler. What is that? I mean, he's either a monster or a monster and a man-child.
I find these posts reprehensible. But Donald Trump is not a stupid man. I can assure you of that. He's won the White House twice.
Are you crazy?
Well,
he's the dumbest guy we've ever had in office.
Well, he's won the White House twice. He's not stupid.
Yeah, that's why I can't stand the corporate Democrats.
He's not stupid.
I mean, to be fair, you're right. I mean, the only people dumber than Donald Trump are the Democratic leadership that keep losing to him.
Okay.
Oh, let's run as elitists. Let's run as pro-corporate and let's embrace Dick Cheney.
All right.
Jesus.
But I don't think he's stupid. But I do think his foreign policy generally actually has been one of his stronger points until this. This makes no sense to me. No, it hasn't made sense from day one.
He has no strong points. His foreign policy has been a disaster. So let's get back to the main issue here. So he said he was against the wars. You're absolutely right about that, especially against Middle Eastern wars. And he said he was worried that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were going to take us into World War III, okay? And now what do we have? Ben-Gvir threatening nukes. And by the way, if you haven't heard, China and Pakistan have said that if Israel nukes Iran, they will nuke Israel. So here we are on the precipice of a nuclear holocaust because this baboon is in office and he's like, oh, Bibi, how can I make you happy? Can you please give me more money? Am I going to be a hero, Bibi? I can't stand this guy. And doing the exact opposite of what he promised. Okay. The exact opposite. And one more thing a point that Glenn made that is really important. So Russia goes and destroys their army and their treasure in Ukraine. Now we're going to destroy our treasure. We spent $300 million on the rescue alone. It was a brilliant operation, but $300 million. We're spending $1 to $2 billion a day. So both Russia and the U.S. are destroying themselves in these totally needless wars, and China is laughing their ass off. How did they get this lucky that we're wasting our treasure and our military on wars for other countries? It's insanity. Let's go compete with China and India economically. Stop this military madness. Get someone who's an American and who's a decent person back in charge of America.
Okay, let me bring Ryan back in here. I found a quote from retired Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Van Linden.
Let us start with the madman theory because KT McFarlane's defense of Trump's rhetoric deserves to be examined seriously before it gets dismantled completely. The madman theory of negotiation is not a new idea. Richard Nixon used it deliberately during Vietnam. The concept is simple. If your adversary believes you are unpredictable enough to do something catastrophic, they will make concessions to prevent you from doing it. The uncertainty itself becomes leverage. And there is a version of this argument that has genuine strategic logic behind it when it is applied carefully by people who know exactly what they are doing and have a clear end state in mind. That is not what is happening here. What is happening here is a president who told the American public he did not think Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz, getting surprised when Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. A president who, according to multiple accounts, was talked into this conflict by a foreign government and is now cornered with no exit ramp and no plan for what comes next. A president who is screaming about destroying civilizations and committing what would constitute genocide on social media, not because he has a carefully calibrated psychological operation running in the background, but because he is frustrated and has no good options, and the language of destruction is the only language he has left when he cannot deliver results. Cenk calls this madman talk, and he is right. But more precisely, it is what madman talk looks like when there is no method behind the madness. when it is just the madness. The Israelification argument is the one that is going to make some people uncomfortable, and it needs to be engaged with directly and honestly. Cenk argues that American foreign policy has been Israelified, that the decision to enter this conflict was made not on the basis of American national security interests, but on the basis of what the Israeli government wanted and what Israeli-aligned advisors in the Trump White House pushed for. He points to the Leviathan pipeline as evidence of who the economic winner of this conflict is designed to be. If Iranian gas fields and Gulf gas fields are destroyed or disrupted, Israel's massive offshore gas reserve becomes the primary energy supplier to the region. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is an energy map. The Leviathan field is real. The economic incentive is real. The question of who benefits from this war is a legitimate question and pointing at a map. And following the money is not anti-Semitism. It is geopolitical analysis. Cenk also makes the point that Ben-Gvir, a sitting member of the Israeli government, went on television joking about nuking Iran, the same week that Trump was posting about destroying Iranian civilization. And KT McFarlane's defense was that Iran might someday get a nuclear weapon, and that would be dangerous. The asymmetry of concern here is staggering. Current Israeli government minister jokes about nuclear strikes on a neighboring country, and it barely registers. Iran is accused of pursuing nuclear capability they cannot yet weaponize, and it is treated as an existential emergency, requiring immediate military action. That double standard is not invisible to the rest of the world, even if it is invisible on American television. Now the moral stain argument. This is the one that I think gets the least attention and deserves the most. Cenk says that even if Trump never follows through on his threats to destroy Iranian civilization, the mere fact that an American president said it out loud leaves an unbearable moral stain on the country. And he is absolutely right. Words from the most powerful office in the world are not just words. They are declarations of intent that shape how every other country in the world understands what America is and what America is capable of. When an American president threatens to commit what would legally constitute genocide, when he uses the language of total civilizational destruction against a country of 90 million people, he is not just negotiating. He is telling the world what kind of country America has become, and that cannot be unsaid. It cannot be walked back with a press secretary statement or a clarifying tweet. It is in the record. It is what other governments will quote when they make their own decisions about what norms apply and what lines can be crossed. The moral stain is real, and it compounds with every repetition. The baboon debate. Let us be honest about this exchange, because both Cenk and Piers are partially right, and the part where they are each wrong is instructive. Piers is correct that calling Trump a baboon is playing into the gutter rhetoric that Trump has normalized, and that it undermines the credibility of the critique. When you lead with the insult, you give people permission to dismiss everything that follows as emotion rather than analysis. That is a tactical problem for anyone trying to persuade people who are not already convinced. But Cenk is also correct that there is a meaningful distinction between political cunning and genuine intelligence. Trump has demonstrated an extraordinary talent for one very specific skill set, which is reading the emotional temperature of a grievance-based political coalition and giving it exactly what it wants to feel. That is real. That is not nothing. It won him the White House twice. But that skill set is entirely different from the kind of strategic intelligence required to manage a war. Understand its second and third order consequences, build a coherent exit strategy, and make decisions that serve the long-term interests of the country rather than the short-term emotional needs of a political base. Trump has the first kind of intelligence in abundance, and the second kind in almost complete deficit. And in peacetime, the first kind can carry you a long way. In a war with nuclear overtones on the table, it is catastrophically insufficient. And then Cenk drops the line that lands hardest and truest in the entire exchange. The only people dumber than Donald Trump are the Democratic leadership that keep losing to him, running as elitists, running as pro-corporate, embracing Dick Cheney. That is not a critique from the right. That is a critique from someone who has spent years arguing that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class voters it used to represent and replaced them with a coalition of professional class liberals who speak the language of inclusion while delivering the economics of the donor class. And until the Democratic Party honestly reckons with that critique, it will keep losing elections it should win to candidates it should be able to beat in its sleep. The campaign promise betrayal is complete and documented. Trump said he was going to keep America out of needless wars. He said Biden and Harris were going to take us into World War III. He ran explicitly on a platform of ending the forever war mentality that had defined American foreign policy for a generation. And now we have Ben-Gvir threatening nuclear strikes. We have China and Pakistan saying they will respond if Israel uses nuclear weapons against Iran. We have the United States spending $1 to $2 billion a day in a conflict with no defined end state and no plan for what comes after. The exact scenario Trump warned his voters about is the scenario Trump created. That is not a small irony. That is the central broken promise of this presidency and the voters who are peeling away from him. The Vinay Shanas, the Tucker Carlsons, the Joe Rogans, they are peeling away precisely because they believed the promise and watched it get discarded the moment a foreign government with a $100 million donation and 7 White House visits decided needed a war. The China argument is the one that should be the centerpiece of every democratic foreign policy message between now and the midterms, and it is barely getting discussed in mainstream political circles. Russia destroyed its army and its treasury in Ukraine. The United States is now destroying its treasury in Iran at $1 to $2 billion a day. Both the world's traditional superpowers are bleeding themselves dry in military conflicts that produce no economic return while China builds infrastructure, invests in technology, deepens trade relationships across the global south, and watches its 2 primary strategic competitors exhaust themselves on wars that China did not start and does not have to fight. This is not a coincidence. This is a strategic gift of historic proportions, and China is receiving it with both hands. While the United States debates whether to commit ground troops to a mountainous country of 90 million people and burns through its defense budget on operations that degrade its long-term military readiness, China is signing trade deals, building ports, training engineers, and positioning itself to be the dominant economic power of the 21st century, not through military conquest, but through patient accumulation of economic relationships that the United States is too distracted and too exhausted to compete for. Cenk is right. Stop the military madness. Go compete economically. Get someone who is actually working for America back in charge of American foreign policy. That is not an isolationist argument. That is a strategic argument about where American power actually needs to be applied to win the competition that actually matters over the next 50 years. Here is the bottom line. Cenk Uygur is not a perfect messenger. He is combative. He uses language that gives his opponents easy ways to change the subject. But underneath the baboon comments and the scorched earth delivery is a set of arguments that are factually grounded, strategically coherent, and morally serious. The Israelification of American foreign policy is a real phenomenon that deserves serious examination. The moral stain of genocide-level rhetoric from an American president is real and permanent. The China strategic opportunity being handed away in real time is real and catastrophic. And the Democratic Party's failure to offer a genuine alternative to the working class voters who are watching all of this and feeling abandoned by every institution that was supposed to represent them is real and urgent. The opportunity for Democrats heading into the midterms is not to be the party that is less crazy than the Republicans. It is to be the party that is actually fighting for the people who are paying the price for this military madness with their tax dollars, their sons and daughters in uniform, and their economic futures. That is a winnable argument. It just requires someone willing to make it with the conviction it deserves. Stay locked in. Stay in this fight. The world is moving fast right now, and you need people in your corner who are going to give it to you straight. If this channel is doing that, subscribe right now, share this video, and let us keep building something that actually means something. I'm Lucas Stowey, and I will see you in the next one.